Good morning. We need to let this sink in. It is extremely important, not just for the past, but the future. Just let this sink in. While Victoria burned on Black Saturday and 173 people died, our top police officer went to dinner. Christine Nixon didn't fiddle while Victoria burned. She went to dinner. She's now exposed as what many claimed she always was, a figurehead. She's admitted to the Royal Commission that she went to dinner as the fires raged after being told how bad they could be. She didn't ask questions. She didn't brief the Premier or Police Minister. Initially, she said she went home and monitored the radio and the internet. Later, when confronted by the Herald Sun, she changed that version. She clarified that version and said she in fact went to dinner in North Melbourne with friends. She's got many questions to answer here, Christine Nixon. I'll speak with her soon. One, she seems to have misled the Commission. She needs to address that with the Commission at once. There may be other implications, but she needs to clear that up. She wasn't at home. She was at dinner. As I said, I'll speak with her soon about that. But the crucial thing here is that Christine Nixon, by her own admission, failed. She failed to manage. She failed to lead. Victoria was burning. The day was catastrophic. It felt catastrophic from when you got up in the morning. You didn't have to be a genius to work that out. Everybody knew it. But Christine Nixon didn't go to the emergency centre until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Every fire officer and police officer was on deck that day and their nerves were jangled. Every media organisation was on deck. I remember we all sat around waiting for the inevitable. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I thought, oh no, we've got to get in there. She went to the control centre at 3 o'clock. She went home at 6 o'clock. None of us were going home at 6 o'clock. None of the police officers and firefighters were going home at 6 o'clock. Not even the bloody media was going home at 6 o'clock. She went home without getting a briefing, without speaking to the police minister or the Premier. And while people died, she went to dinner. I find it mind-numbing. If she was in the job, she'd have to be removed. It is literally unbelievable that a person who is in charge of the disaster plan, one of those in charge, went to dinner while the biggest catastrophe, the biggest emergency in Victoria's history was unfolding. I find it extraordinary. I find it unforgivable. I believe Christine Nixon should no longer be in a public job. She should step down as head of the Bushfire Reconstruction Authority. Now, I know it's not an emergency service, but if you can't manage properly, you can't manage properly. And Christine Nixon has shown unequivocally she's no leader. On the line now is the former Chief Commissioner, Christine Nixon. Good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Is there a chance, if you'd done your job properly, lives would have been saved?
No, I don't think so.
How do you know that?
Well, I think I've looked at this situation. I've obviously monitored during the day. Just my view.
Sorry?
That's my view.
Okay. Now, do you think you owe the Royal Commission an explanation? You actually didn't go home, you went to dinner.
I went home and then I went and had a meal with two friends.
How long were you out?
Oh, about an hour, I think.
Okay.
And then I went back home again.
Did you have your phone with you?
Of course I did, Neil. I have my phone with me all the time.
Yeah, and you took calls?
I did. I think there was one during the time I was there.
And how were you monitoring the internet at dinner?
No, I wasn't.
Were you monitoring radio at dinner?
No, I wasn't, but I did when I went home. I had dinner for an hour. People knew where I was. I left very capable people at the centre, knowing that also the Minister was arriving and so was Deputy Commissioner Walsh. And I believe that those people, I have great faith in them, and I believe they would continue to do the job I'd seen them doing. Were
you told before you left that there was a potential for serious loss of life?
I had talked to the fire chiefs, and they said there was that potential. I understood that, and so I made a decision that the coming days would be very difficult, that I'd been away, and I needed to go home, have a meal, monitor the situation, and be up early at 5 a.m. the following morning to proceed to a number of the locations where the fires had occurred.
So what happened after dinner? Did you go home to bed?
I went home, I watched news, I listened to the internet, I received calls, I got, I don't know how many text messages from different people in terms of updates, and that went on till about 2 or 3. And as I said, at 5 o'clock I went out to Whittlesea and then to a number of the other locations, Kangaroo Ground, and eventually ended up in Gippsland that day.
But as Chief Commissioner, why weren't you in the middle of it?
Neil, it's a role of coordination, and I was the one...
but who was coordinating?
Well, there was a very capable Assistant Commissioner for Emergency Services and Counter-Terrorism who was there, and he was coordinating, as were two superintendents and inspector. We also had, of course, the combat agencies, headed up by the head of the CFA and the DSE.
But Ms. Nixon,
all those groups were responsible.
Ms. Nixon, if a disaster of this size doesn't warrant the personal attention of the Chief Commissioner, what the hell does?
Neil, look, I've asked myself about, could I have done things differently? I was there. I wasn't supposed to be on duty, but I saw, as you did, a situation unfolding. I went in to our police response centre, and then I went up to the Integrated Emergency Response Centre. I stayed there, understood the briefings, did the work that I believed was appropriate, left people who were capable in preparation for going the following day, and thereafter I think I've continued to work extraordinarily hard.
What do you mean you weren't supposed to be on duty?
Well, I know I'm 24 hours a day, but in fact I wasn't sort of the one that was going to be in charge of the Senate. Steve Fontana, Assistant Commissioner, very capable man, was going to be in charge, oversighted by the Deputy Commissioner.
But Chief, none of it, former Chief, Ms. Nixon, none of us were supposed to be on duty. Probably a lot of your members weren't supposed to be on duty.
No, they weren't.
But they
just
went
like
in.
me, they were called back, and I came into the situation and took my responsibilities up as well.
What was your role at the time with Displan?
I was the coordinator of Displan, and Displan is really around ensuring that all of the agencies are prepared, that we all know what our roles are, both at local level and at regional and at state level. And we'd certainly been practicing and were aware of all our responsibilities, and all those systems and processes were put into place on the day.
Well, were they ready? Did they react adequately?
Look, I think many of them did, and I think others were left wanting, and I think that's what the Royal Commission is now looking at. And I think their recommendations will help us all to understand what went wrong and how to do better in the future. Do
you apologise for not being there? Do you think, in retrospect, you should have been there?
Look, Neil, if I could have changed, if there was a life, I could have saved.
No, that's not what I asked. Your responsibility here.
Well, I think in hindsight, yes, I should have.
And why weren't you? I mean, I thought, why weren't you? I mean,
I was there, Neil. I was there for the...
You didn't go in until 3 o'clock and you left at 6.
No, I didn't actually, Neil. I went in at 12 o'clock. And I went into the State Emergency Response Centre, and I then went back to the State Emergency Response Centre, and then I went up to the Emergency Control Centre. So I was there for a significant amount of time, and then I monitored and was kept in touch by a variety of resources.
After you're told all hell's about to break loose, you went to dinner.
Neil, I had to eat. It's as simple as that.
I understand that. You should have seen the mess at 3AW.
Neil,
We're eating
pizzas. It wasn't a celebration or anything else. It was a simple matter of a meal with 2 people, and then I went home.
We all have to eat, Chief, but... sorry, Ms Nixon, we all have to eat.
No, Neil, I understand.
But for heaven's sake, we all have to work at certain times, and we throw down a sandwich. I don't think most of us ate for that week properly.
Well, and neither did I, Neil, because I continued to work like everybody else.
Yeah, but it's no answer. You had to go. Yeah, okay.
I went home and I had a meal, and...
Why don't you keep a diary?
I have people who, in the main, will keep information on that day. There were logs being kept in all of those centres, and that's what I relied on.
You realise that every member of your police force keeps a diary and is required to?
Well, many of them do, and many of them use them for arrest and those sorts of operational responsibilities. In terms of a coordination role, I believe there were very significant materials being collected on what happened on that day, and they clearly were kept, and the Royal Commission has access, as other people do.
Greg Davies has suggested the Royal Commission should consider whether you have misled it. Would you consider your evidence?
Well, I said I had a meal, and that was where we went to. I'm sorry that Mr Davies feels that way.
All right. It seems from the transcript that I've read, you gave the impression you went home, and there was no mention of the restaurant.
I did go home.
Yeah, and then you went out.
I did go home and said I had a meal.
Okay. Do you think perhaps you should consider your position now with the Bushfire Reconstruction Authority?
Neil, I've had now this responsibility for nearly 13 months, and I think we've achieved an enormous amount during that time. I think there's 2 groups that will make that decision, and one is the fire-affected communities and the thousands of people I've met and dealt with over the last 13 months, and the government will have to make that decision.
So will you consider resigning?
No, Neil, I won't.
You're dealing with people here who now see you as having gone missing on the crucial day.
Well, Neil, I understand, and people will form their views according to what they read and according to what they hear, and some of them will ask me, and I will explain what I did on the day, and but I think they also understand what I've done since and how I did, in fact, I believe, have faith in people who had skill and capacity who were doing the job on the day.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Neil.
Former Chief Commissioner Christine Nixon, I haven't changed my view.